Hey guys, I'm still processing my emotions after this game. I was playing an international master, a very strong player, one of the strongest players from Kazakhstan. He is rated over 2300 ELO in classical. His name is Askarov Bakhtiar. At his peak, he was rated around 2450. He has wins over many grandmasters, even top grandmasters. Very strong player. And before the game, I was expecting that probably I'll be crushed because the skill difference is huge. I'm rated at around 1900 over the board. He is more than 400 points higher rated than me. But what happened exceeded my expectations to a great extent. And the finish of this game will shock you. It was a shocking finish. I'm still processing this. So let me just show this to you. This is probably one of my best games, but there is a catch. You will see. So I'm playing with the white pieces, and my opponent goes for the modern defense, which is an opening that black chooses when black wants to win. This is not the objectively best opening for black. It is risky because black gives up a lot of space in the center, which I happily take. But the idea is to counterattack. And here I immediately strike with h4. This is a topical maneuver. I want to go h5 in many lines, sometimes even sacrificing material, for example. An exchange sacrifice here is quite good for white, even the computer approves. So this is in my style. I like attacking. I decided, you know what, most probably I'm going to lose. I have some smallest chance if I attack him, because when I attack people, you might have seen my games. When I'm in good shape, I can do something crazy on the board, create chaos, and who knows who emerges on top. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to attack him. He goes h5, stopping my advancement, and I just develop. So you see, black is not trying to take the center. Black is trying to fianchetto both its bishops, and bishop b7 is the move that he made. Here he's threatening b4 when this knight will no longer guard this pawn, so I go f3, which is a topical move here. Also g4 next in some variations ensues. So black generally in these types of positions tries to maneuver the knight to b6, go c5 or b4 or a5, a4, attack on the queen side, maybe castle short, and I will attack on the king side. So this is what often happens in the games of Hikaru Nakamura. He plays a similar setup in Blitz very often. So knight d7, I go king b1, a nice prophylactical move. It's always useful to tuck your king in the corner if you go long castles, because bishop h6 with a pin might happen at some point, so you need to avoid that. Knight b6, now he wants to go to c4, forking my queen and my bishop, and I will have to give up either the light squared bishop or the dark squared bishop. I don't want to do that, so I slide with my queen to f2. Now knight f4 will no longer be a fork, and I will just drop back with my bishop. So he develops, and I go knight h3. This is a strange looking move, but the f3 square is taken by my pawn, so I want to go to g5 via h3. Nothing wrong with that. Up to this point, we are playing top engine recommendations. The position is a little bit better for white because white has this amazing center. d4 and e4 pawns control a lot of space, and the computer likes such positions for white. But humanly speaking, obviously it's a very double-edged position. Anything can happen here. He goes e6, and I jump in with my knight to g5. It's a great square for the knight once black has gone h5, because pawns don't go backwards, and on h6 that pawn would be better located to prevent this knight from staying on this outpost. But sadly for black, this knight is here to stay. So d5, black tries to strike in the center, but I go e5. And now this bishop is blocked by this pawn chain. Maybe black will go c5 and try to destroy the pawn chain, but for the time being, I really like my position. And at the board, I was feeling confident. I was feeling like I'm getting the kind of the game that I want to get against such a strong opponent. So I go bishop d3. This is the final piece that has entered the game. I in the g6 square. In some future, maybe I could sacrifice even. For example, he goes like rook b8, and I can take on e6. Already my position is crazily good. Check, then I can go bishop g5, and this is already winning with this strong attack. So black needs to be careful here after bishop d3. Also, bishop could be sacrificed on g6 and then fg, and knight takes on e6 also. Not that bad, forking the queen, the bishop, and this pawn. So black has to watch out. Queen e7 is a sensible move. And now I remembered the lesson that my grandmaster coach gave me. He asked me once, what should you do once you get out of the opening? What do you think? What are your versions? So I tried to provide some versions of mine to him, but they were all not good enough. Finally, he said, you should improve your knight. Remember this. Once you will use this knowledge. And I used this knowledge. I was looking at this position. I really like my position. Maybe I can go g4 and break with this pawn, try to attack. Maybe I should go f4, like caveman style pawn storm. But then I remembered this lesson by my grandmaster coach, Farukh Amanatov. And I was like, what's this knight doing? It's not doing too much because it's eyeing those pawns, but they cannot be taken. This square is also protected by the enemy's pawn. This square is protected by the enemy's pawn. This knight is more like a liability here. It's a nuisance. So let's rotate it to e2 and then to f4 to join the attack. And this is, well, for stronger players, maybe it's an obvious maneuver, but for me, I was really happy that I remembered this lesson by my coach, and I was like, yeah, nice move. And the computer agrees, this is a top engine choice. So here he jumps with his knight to c4, and I jump to f4. And already the computer is starting to like my position. I have many threats. I have knight e6 threats. I have knight g6 threats. I have even knight takes f7 threats. I have bishop takes g6 threats. Everything is threatened. Here I was calculating for some time what happens if he takes here. Obviously, I thought I could take with the queen and be much better because I have all those threats and his dark squared bishop is not dangerous, not scary because my pawns block it. But also I was calculating what if I sack a knight on e6. So the idea is that if he takes here, I can take with a check. And once he drops back, I take and I have an attack. I have decent compensation for the piece. But also, he can take here, attacking my queen. And I was calculating, check, king here, check. The idea is, if he takes with a pawn, I give him this check with a fork. And now I have several moves. I can take the knight. If I take his queen, he will take mine. So that's not good. I'm down material, so I have to take the knight. His queen is still hanging. I'm down a rook, but I have a great attack. Actually, the computer says I'm better. Wow, I didn't realize that at the time. I was calculating this stuff, and then I thought, okay, let's see. If he takes, I will calculate it deeper. So that's what could have happened had he taken on e3. But here he chose a different move. He went knight f8, and I really didn't like that move. The computer says it's one of the top choices, but this is so passive. He doesn't have any counterplay. I was also thinking maybe he can sacrifice on b2. That's not correct, computer says, but still. So take and take here. And if I take, he can take with the bishop, and already there is some attack brewing. Or maybe queen b4 first. Wow, yeah, the computer is more precise. And then checkmate is threatened, or this way. So for example, if I do nothing, then check, check, and checkmate. This is what could have happened. So if I was playing black here, I would have sacrificed something. I like this. I don't like this knight f8. It's like meh move. Yeah, it's protecting everything. I don't have any sacrifices now, but black is very passive. Maybe take on e5 in some variations also. Well, it doesn't really work, but I don't like what he did here. But he's an international master and I'm not, so who who am I to judge? I go bishop c1 now, disallowing him this exchange. I decided to keep my dark squared bishop. He castles long. Now he cannot even castle short because his knight is preventing this, so he has to castle long. And here I'm happy with my position, and the computer agrees. The computer gives me a +1 advantage because this king is weak. These squares around this king are really weak, and I can use them. This is what I thought. So first I kick his knight away, and then I think of an interesting maneuver. After the game, my opponent congratulated me on that. He said that, wow, that was really unexpected and a great maneuver. Queen d2. So the idea is to put the queen on a5, since his pawn cannot move backwards to b6 and attack the queen. So the queen will not be attacked there. And then I'll try to attack his king with my queen. So that's the idea. He goes bishop h6, I go queen a5. Now I have ideas of a4, breaking this pawn chain, and then my bishop activates. It's getting really nasty for black. He takes here. And here, for some time, I was thinking that I should use an intermezzo, Zwischenzug, an intermediate move, in-between move, attacking his queen. But for some reason, I decided against this. After the game, my opponent told me that he would have sacrificed the queen here. Very interesting idea. I honestly didn't see it. So in the resulting position, black has 3 minor pieces, a bishop and 2 knights for a queen, which is material equality. A queen is worth 9 pawns, and the bishop and 2 knights are worth combined also 9 pawns. So that would be very, very non-standard material balance, and the computer gives equality in all lines. That could have happened, but I decided against this. I decided, you know what? Once he took my knight, I can just take his bishop. No need to go bishop a3, because he cannot take this pawn. If he takes, I'll just go knight g6 with a discovered attack on the queen, and I'm winning. So I took with the pawn, and my position is much better. He tries to add another piece to the defense, but now I go a4. I continue my plan. I strike him where he's the weakest, on the queen side. His king is not feeling safe anymore. So he takes, and I take on a6, and it's getting hotter and hotter around the black king. If he takes here, I take with check, and then I go knight d3 and rotate my knight to c5, or if he allows b4 and c6, and it's getting very bad for the king. So taking on a6 is bad. He decided to go back with his knight b8. I take. He takes, and you can see even visually without the computer evaluation bar that white is much better. What is this king doing? 2 knights try to guard the king like in the old times, the cavalry, but the cavalry is not effective against such a strong piece as the queen. But the queen cannot make the king on her own, although maybe she can sometimes, if you know what I mean, but it needs help. And the knight jumps into the action. Now the knight can jump into c5. Hotter and hotter around black's king. Knight d7, I check, he takes. And now there is an uncomfortable question for this knight, because if it leaves to, for example, d7, you see the evil bar jumping up because it's completely winning. I check, and I go c6, and I threaten queen b7 mate. The only way black can do something is like knight c5, but then I go, for example, b4 is one of the ways to do it. The knight cannot leave because it protects the b7 square, and it will be made soon. Also, the computer gives queen a5 as a better version, also threatening mate, and once king goes to b8, rook d4 seals the deal. So yeah, this will be demolition. So turns out that after this capture by my pawn, the knight cannot leave. It's posed. It will have to die. And black is already down a full piece. Rook a8 kicks my queen, but I just drop back. Now the knight cannot go away due to a pin. He takes. I take. Still, I'm going to take next move. He goes rook a6. And here I spent some time thinking what to do. Unfortunately, I missed a very fast win here. I could have neglected this knight and just gone, instead of taking, I took it. I could have gone c6 check. And this is lights out almost after rook h4, a great move, intending to go rook a4. For example, if rook a8, I go a rook a4, I'm threatening to take with a checkmate, so black has to take, and I take with a pawn, and my next move will be a5, and this knight will have to leave its post, and then it will be checkmate. If black protects like rook b8, queen a5 is a beautiful checkmate. The king has no squares because this is controlled by the pawn. So black has no defense in this position. It's absolutely lost. I didn't see that. And also we both were starting to get low on time. So I decided, you know what, I'll take this knight. I'll try to win this endgame up a piece. It's not as easy and trivial because yes, I'm up a bishop, but I'm up a bishop for a pawn and my pawns are weak and he has some decent counterplay. c5. Now he wants to go c4. And I realized that, nah, it's not easy, especially considering the fact that I'm playing against an international master whose skill level is much higher than mine. Yes, he got sloppy and he got outplayed by me. He neglected my attack and my attacking possibilities, but now he is really angry and he smells blood. That's probably what he does in this position. So bishop b2, I try to block this b file to avoid pins. Rook a8, another rook joins the attack. I go king c2, evacuating my king from the line of sight. And already I made a couple of not top engine moves and I've lost almost all of my advantage. He has very strong counterplay. Queen takes the pawn. Now he has two pawns for a bishop and he wants to take the third one. And here I find an interesting resource. I could have gone rook d2 and tried to hold everything with my pieces, but I thought it's boring and I need to activate my pieces and not stand idly. So I went g4, actually one of the computer recommendations. So the idea is if he takes, I can enter via the 7th rank with rook h7 and I have an attack of my own. And that would be dangerous for him. So he avoided that. Instead, he continues advancement, c4. It's a pawn sacrifice, and he doesn't take back because that would be tragic. Queen d7 and mate will follow soon. So he goes rook a2, and I'm bound. I'm bound like in some role play because I cannot move any muscle. This is a little bit unpleasant, to say the least. And now he takes on e5, adding another attacker, and I cannot take him because I'm bound. So within those 2 or 3 moves, he outplayed me and got even a slight advantage. His compensation for the piece is huge, but still it's around equal according to the computer. So here I find the move queen c3, blocking his queen. I'm fine with exchanging. Probably if we exchange, I won't lose. Maybe I will even play for a win. With a rook and bishop against a rook, he gives me a check. I go back. And here, he has various moves. He decides to take my pawn, but he allows counterplay by me again. And I do not miss this opportunity. I go c5, attacking his rook. And you know what? If the rook moves, for example, to b5, I have c6 check. And his king is now feeling vulnerable. If the king goes to the 8th rank, I have rook h8, and suddenly I'm winning. I'm mating him. So the king needs to go to c7, but then I have queen e5 check. We exchange. He takes, I take, and so this is a drawn position. At this point, I wouldn't probably mind a draw, because drawing an international master is not a bad result, I think. So, for example, one sample line by the computer is rook g2, rook h7, takes, rook h4, and his king cannot enter, and his pawns cannot advance. So, yeah, it's a draw. So, rook and bishop against a rook also basically is a draw, by the way. I'll make a video about this endgame. You can play for a win. I could have tried to play for a win, but objectively it's a draw. And here I think it's impossible to play for a win because he has these 3 pawns. It's not easy to win them. So, okay, that's what could have happened after c5. If he moves the rook here, with best play, we reach an equal endgame. But he was also creative. He went rook a4, sacrificing his rook to win my queen. And here we enter into a very interesting endgame. I take the pawn, he gives me a check. Utilizing my pin, I cannot take because of this pin. I go king here, check, I go here, he takes. And we have an endgame. Queen against 2 rooks and a bishop. Who's playing for a win? I don't know. I wanted to play for a win. I thought there are chances for me. But I thought that probably he also wants to play for a win because I'm lower rated. So I don't know what happens here. This is only the beginning of the adventures. So check, d4. He tries to advance his pawns. Past pawns should be pushed, as they say. Bishop d2. He tries to harass my bishop. I defend. He adds another pawn to the avalanche. But I go bishop b4, attacking his queen. And I go king a3. And suddenly, it feels like I'm outplaying him. You see the evil bar jumping up? Plus 1.4 already. Close to a winning position for white. You know why? Check. He goes here. I go to c1. He checks me. I go here. And for example, if he takes this pawn, he will get mated. Bishop a5 check. And these rooks are very angry about what's been happening to them and to their king. They want revenge. And they will checkmate. If the black king goes here, this is checkmate. And if the black king goes here, this will be checkmate in several moves. Rook will go to h8 very soon, and it will be a ladder mate. Black doesn't have any checks, by the way. Yeah. So it's very dangerous. Suddenly, I'm outplaying my international master opponent. He cannot take the pawn, and if he doesn't take the pawn and keeps checking me, I'll just block. And now my rook will infiltrate, and the same terrible things will happen to his king. He goes queen e2, I go rook c7, king b8, and the computer says it's mate in 8. A forced mating sequence in 8 moves. We both have around a minute on the clock at this point, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. And here I'm thinking what to do. What to do. Am I really winning against an international master? Am I really this close to winning? I don't see the evil bar at this point, obviously. But I feel that I'm winning. I should be winning. And I think probably rook c1 is winning first. I didn't calculate it till the end, but yeah, the idea is that if he checks me, I go here, I block, he checks me, I go here, he checks me, I go here. I didn't calculate all that. I somehow decided that I don't need to go for this, but this is mate in 3 already, this position. This will follow and it will be mate. He can do nothing about it. So mate in 3 is because he can sacrifice the queen, but there will be mate in 2 now. b7 and rook c8 checkmate. Nothing to stop it. So that was one of the possibilities. I thought maybe I should go rook b to c1. But then something happened in my brain and I was like, why don't I go b7? Because this rook is protected by the bishop and I'm threatening rook c8. And once the king moves to a7, b8 queen is checkmate in a couple of moves. And I was like, okay, do I not blunder? Queen c2 check is impossible. And I was like, okay, do I not blunder? Okay, let's check. Queen c2 check is impossible because the rook controls the square. Queen c4 check is also impossible because the rook controls the square. Queen d1 check is also impossible because the other rook controls the square. So I was like, okay, b7 is winning. And I went b7. And you can see by the evaluation bar that this was a tragic mistake. A tragic mistake. One of the most tragic moments in my chess career. I was one move from winning against my international master opponent. Because in this position, he just went queen a2. It's the only check that I didn't look at. And it turns out that I'm not just losing the rook with check, because it's a fork, but I'm losing the rook with check. I have to move my king. And at first I thought maybe I have the draw here because I'm threatening rook c8 and maybe he has to give me a perpetual check. But turns out no. He can check me. And check me from here, and then check me from here. And I saw that I'm losing, because if I block with my bishop, he will not give me a perpetual check back and forth, but he will just take on a5. And if I take, he takes here. And if I go here, hoping to go here and queen, He goes king b8, and my pawn is stopped, and his pawns will not be stopped. And I'm losing. This was such a heartbreaking moment for me. So in this position, I didn't block with my bishop, seeing what would have happened. And I went king b5, but now he can just go d3, because now rook c8 is not a threat. He can take my pawn. And I go rook d7, trying to do something at least, maybe create some check-in opportunities for myself, although none of them work, but still. And here, lots of moves win, but he just decided to give me a couple of checks. And here, he could have gone d2, this is completely winning, but he decided to win in a flasher style. He took my rook, and he calculated that this is a winning endgame for him, which is absolutely correct. I draw back, he goes f5, and the bishop cannot stop this wall of pawns. Now I muster all my resources and come up with the last effort to save the game. King e6. The idea is, if he takes, I take on e5, g3, king d4. And I'm in time to stop the pawns. The bishop controls the queen in square of this pawn, and the king takes this pawn. But of course he didn't take. He went f4. And I resigned because I can do nothing about this wall of pawns. One sample line is bishop d2, f3. I take, he goes f2. And if I go bishop here, he goes f2 still, and d2, and next the pawn will queen. So this was the most heartbreaking loss in my chess career, I think. But this was probably one of the best games I've ever played. I've sent the PGN to my coach, and he was like, Greg, you played an amazing game. So unfortunately, 59 moves I played on a high level, and the 60th move was a stupid blunder. And I'm now on 2 out of 3 points. I lost this game. Tomorrow there will be 2 more rounds, so there's still some room for good chess performance. Let's see if I can do it tomorrow. Wish me luck. See you in the next one.